What's good, y'all? Your boy IronAngel here. We're back with some more Gotham Knights information. This is the preview, which more than likely IGN when they had previews from my past experience watching their videos. They're talking about other things that's in the game because they've either had their hands on it or something. You know, IGN get that info, and so I'm interested in seeing what it is because this is the most anticipated game of the year for me. So yeah, I'm interested in seeing what comes with it. Who knows? I mean, the video is 10 minutes, so they got a lot to talk about. So let's just get right into it. Y'all know I've been reacting to their video, to Gotham Knight stuff because I'm looking forward to this game. Batgirl's definitely going to be my main, but I'm going to use them all. But yeah, thank y'all for tuning in. Let's get right into it. I'm interested in seeing what they say.
Come to watch the show, Red Hood.
Nah, I'm just here to kick your ass.
As part of our visit to Warner Bros. Games Montreal, we got to see a lot of Gotham Knights being played, but we weren't able to go hands-on with the game ourselves, and that makes a traditional preview a little difficult.
So they didn't play it? Let me just listen.
Without having had a controller in our hands, it's hard to say how combat, working through missions, or making gear choices feels. And with that in mind, this preview will be a little more structural. With the help of the game's developers, we'll walk you through how Gotham Knights is put together, revealing brand new information about the open world, how supervillains fold into the fabric of the wider game, the game's neat approach to a day-night cycle, and more.
Well, that's cool.
As we've spoken about previously this month, Gotham Knights' world is aiming to feel like a real city, with centuries of history behind it. Part and parcel with that is how truly open it is. The developers ensured that almost the entirety of their Gotham is open from the very beginning, with each of its 5 boroughs offering different traversal opportunities, different threats, different activities, and different characters. But the team also...
By the way, thank y'all in the comments for letting me know. I was wondering, was this game still in the Arkham universe? And it's not. I was told it wasn't. So they got to tell. It just looks like it. Like they see like the artwork, how they made it. It seemed like they just kept it going with the Arkham universe, but I'm wrong. So all right, I'm glad to know that. I didn't care either way. I just, it could have been, it could not have been. It doesn't change the feeling I have towards the game. I was just curious because it
wanted
looked
to
like
create
it.
a sense of a city reacting to the presence of new vigilantes hitting the streets.
I would say we start off the game in a pretty cold version of Gotham. The police don't like you. The citizens don't like you. And over time, the tone evolves because you identify major threats to the city. You can find out to a certain extent what's going on beneath the surface in Gotham, and you gradually build the confidence of the citizens.
Of course, some will always be on your side, and a group of citizens called the Watch act as an informant network for the Knights, offering up missions that will help stitch their parts of the city back together, all of which will see you head out into the darkness to help bring some light back to Gotham. As it turns out, Dark Knights in training like to come out during, well, Dark Nights. Key to Gotham Knights is that it's not a game with a shifting...
whoever she is, she big, bro. It's like, she tall and brute. Goodness gracious. I do like, and I said this before, the game looks like Arkham, obviously, but it has that Spider-Man, the PS5 Spider-Man feel to it with the combat and how it looks.
Continuous day-night cycle. Rather, the entire game is set
both
over consecutive nights, with new crimes emerging every evening and villain storylines progressing alongside your work to stop them. The only time you'll see daylight in the main game is inside the Knight's headquarters, the Belfry, where you'll plan for what to do after the next sunset.
So you can't do anything in the daytime.
The central loop of the game experience in Gotham Knights is what we call our Belfry loop. When you exit the Belfry, it's always nighttime. You don't have to worry about when the sun's going to come up. But in the course of that night, there are going to be some crimes and other activities that are happening in the streets of Gotham that are premeditated. They were predetermined by whoever was going to commit them, the day before. When you complete a night of crime fighting, and it's up to the player to decide when they're done. But it could be a case of them saying, well, I think I've hit most of the major crimes I needed to, or it could be the case of them saying, I learned what I needed to learn and now I need to go back to the Belfry to advance the story, for example. Then you return to Belfry and now it's daytime.
Crimes in Gotham Knights come in many forms. They can range from procedurally generated muggings right up to entire gangs running complex operations. And the more you foil, the more you'll learn about crimes to come.
We wanted this concept of information scarcity. So you need to find stuff out about the city night after night.
You already have a kind of activity queue that you can be tracking and deciding, okay, I think that's going to be more important for me to take on. Maybe this is more interesting to me because it maps better to one of the challenges that I'm trying to complete. Or maybe this has direct impact on me finding that next chapter in the larger mystery, right? So there's a lot of different reasons why a player might choose to go after one particular crime or another.
Unlike the game's checkpointed story missions, if you
Jeez,
fail a
it's all,
crime,
bro,
there's
it's
no
big.
opportunity to replay that exact situation again. It's all part of the superhero learning process. Once you end a night, crimes are reset.
That night is over. The crimes that you didn't solve continued unabated, and now you're in a situation where you can look at what's coming up for the next night. So maybe you've collected enough clues that you're going to know in advance. Oh, there's going to be a heist at the bank, or there's going to be an armored car robbery, or someone's going to try to break somebody out of prison. You know, in addition to that, there's a bunch of things you don't know about, right? There's all of the other crimes that haven't been revealed, and you can find out about them through patrolling.
It's a system designed to keep offering new ideas without feeling inauthentic to how a real city
like
might
that.
work. But of course, in a comic book city, not all crimes are created equal. Sometimes in your nightly patrols, you'll stumble across information that points to a much bigger, more recognizable threat.
Did you miss me?
We were shown precisely nothing of the game's main story campaign after its tutorial. The team clearly wants to keep its take on the beloved Court of Owls storyline as clandestine as the group itself.
I
But the
respect
game's
that.
villain storylines aren't necessarily a part of that darker conspiracy. Like any good comic book world, multiple supervillains are running riot across Gotham simultaneously, each with their own agendas. In Gotham Knights, that means that supervillain arcs are optional side stories taking place over multiple nights and made part of the open world itself, not just story dungeons. As
Oh,
you
so
learn
that's not
more about
really-
the villains taking on
So some
specific
of these villains might not even be part of the main story. It's just, like they said, their own arc. I like that.
missions along the way, your
Separation.
Belfry
Because it's
evidence
Gotham
board
City.
will
There's always something going on. Like, Mr. Freeze would care less what the Court of Owls are doing. You know what I'm saying? He has his own agenda.
begin to grow, connecting clues to evidence and eventually letting you trigger what the team calls a villain night.
You know, when we talk about villain nights, we sometimes refer to them as epic villain crime, and it's because we always wanted the villains to be menacing Gotham City. We didn't want it to be a case of, oh, I'm going to go into this sort of bubble dungeon universe and Gotham's somewhere else, and I'm just engaging with them here. And sometimes that means we do some fundamentally, big changes, right? We like encase Elliott Center in ice. In the case of, one of the later missions in the Harley Quinn arc, Gotham City Hospital is going to be, invaded and is going to be thrown into chaos.
While it's very possible that these optional arcs could illuminate the main storyline somehow, the impression we got is that these standalone villains are there to enrich the sense of Gotham as a true comic book city with multiple threats to stave off at one time. And that applies to the town's gangs as well. As we've talked about before, Gotham Knights factions aren't just goons for a supervillain, although they certainly can be. Instead, they populate the city themselves, causing various flavors of mayhem depending on their affiliation. So far, we've seen the Freaks and the Regulators, and some of our footage has made mention of Red Hood's hatred for the mob.
Hey look, more scumbag looking for a beat.
This feeling of criminal elements spreading across the city is intended to get across the endlessness of the superhero's job. You're not able to wipe out a faction from the map, you're simply stymieing their work.
You can clean Gotham of crime for a night, but you can never stop it. Even Batman wasn't capable of that.
I was about to say,
neither are
Gotham
you.
City, there's no such
Practically,
thing
that
as
means there
finishing
will
it.
always be crimes to fight and combat to be had, but factions also
Yeah,
provide another
Batman
service.
can't do it,
Each
they're
one
not
is
gonna
tied
do
to
it.
specific gear, crafting materials, and other unlocks, which you'll use to beef up your heroes. We've covered Gotham Knights' many superhero suits previously, but that was very much from the cosmetic angle. From a more gameplay-driven angle, players will be able to craft gear that alters their hero's armor, melee, and ranged items, offering stat boosts and elemental damage changes. Crafting that gear comes down to two things: having the blueprint and the materials to make it.
All of the gear
So,
is created.
I mean, I never even touched on that. Depending on the level of my character is going to show if I can face a certain enemy or not. Like the story, for example, I saw how they showed the level of the enemies was at level 30. And if I don't work my way to getting that level up there, I can either have a hard time or I can't beat them at all. So I do have to make sure that, is a factor in the game I do when I play it. Because now I didn't even pay attention to that you might have to level up your character. Because I didn't know. Like, Henchman is a level 30. I saw that and I'm like, huh. So, you can if you want. I was about to say you can't play the main story straight through. I mean, you probably can if you want, but it ain't going to be a walk in the park at all. Where even a henchman can knock you out like that. Because they're level 30, you're level 5, for example. But it's probably not that hard to level up in this game. just something I
It's
noticed.
crafting. There are flavors of gear, and it applies in slightly different ways to suits and melee weapons and ranged weapons, but what they kind of have in common is this focus on these elemental damage types. Cryogenic, freezing damage, thermal damage, electrical damage, poison, stun, these kinds of things.
And those interactions should become doubly interesting by introducing another player into the world. From day
Wait a
one,
minute, I
the
just
Gotham
noticed
Knights
that.
team has made...
I'm just now noticing you can have 2 red hoods in the game. You see how the other guy who was the co-op, he has red hoods, so you can't. I mean, I guess that's cool, but I thought you have to choose one of the 4. Like, look at that. I don't know if y'all noticed. I'm just now noticing that.
Electrical damage, poison, stun, these kinds of things.
And those interactions should
The other-
become
like, that's
doubly
Red Hood, and the other
interesting
player
by
using Red Hood
introducing
right
another
there.
player into the world.
So
From
you can
day
just
one, the Gotham
have 2
Knights team has
Batgirls,
made
2
clear that its
Robins.
take on 2-player co-op is completely untethered, meaning one player can theoretically explore another's world without ever having to meet them.
Anytime you're playing in Gotham City as opposed to inside a story dungeon as part of one of the beats of the main mystery of the storyline, you're untethered. It also provides the most organic kind of superhero meetup opportunity where you think your buddy is with you and then he disappears for a while because he got distracted by something and you found a collectible. And then a second later you look up on a rooftop and a Batarang comes out of nowhere and here's Batgirl and she's here to help you stop a crime.
Of course, this could throw up issues of how progression works for players and how players at different parts of the story can interact. The solution is elegantly unfussy. Characters of different levels will scale so that they somewhat match, enemies will also scale to the player's levels, and most importantly, progression matters to the
So you got
host
2 red
and
hoods
the
if you wanted
guest.
to.
When you're in Gotham, the host is their story, but 100% of your hero progression is your own. And then once you return to your own Gotham, time essentially restarts in your own story. If you completed a major story beat, a villain arc, dungeon against the Court of Owls while playing with a friend, when you get to that part in your own story, the game will ask you, do you want to play it again? Or do you want to just kind of say, you did this part in some other universe and we'll just fast forward you through it?
But despite watching hours of the game being played live, there was a lot we weren't allowed to see. The game's main story missions are still a mystery to us, even down to how they're unlocked or displayed on the map. More intriguingly, the team repeatedly made reference to an endgame for Gotham Knights, but steadfastly refused to talk about it. Given the game's action RPG structure, it wouldn't be hugely surprising to find that it included an MMO-style raid of some kind, or, with a focus on the open world as an evolving space, if Gotham itself was materially transformed by the effects of the Court of Owls. We just don't know right now. But the biggest
I'm gonna say it now. I'm just gonna take a guess. Batman, once you rescue him, because I still stand on it, he ain't dead. There's no way they truly killed them all. That at the end, in the end game, you can use Batman if you want. He's gonna be part of the 4 now 5. I'm gonna say it now. That would be sick if you can use them, and then down the line you can use Batman. And then let's say in the DLC, whenever that comes out, you can use Batwoman, because I like Batwoman in the DC universe, Batman universe. So, but forget the DLC. I can say in the end game right now, after you rescue Batman, which I'm going to say that's what's going to happen. I'm just assuming, but more than likely I'll be right with that. I'm pretty sure a lot of people think that Batman's not dead. But after you do that, I'm pretty sure you can use them in the game. But only in the end game. You can't use them in the story because obviously it has nothing to do with the story. But yeah, I'm going to say that right now.
For us
before
is
the game
in how
comes
the
out.
game feels to play for an extended period of time. Combat certainly looks interesting, perhaps a tad heavier than the Arkham series it will be compared to, and with a much bigger focus on using special abilities you've earned along the way. Getting around the city, whether by parkour, grappling hook, bike, fast travel paradrops, or the hero's unlockable abilities, feels
That's
like
cool.
a genuinely fun first affair as well. But Gotham Knights will live and die on how these things string together, and how those smaller moments make its larger structure, those nights of patrols, crime fighting, and clue gathering, feel as compulsive as the team hopes for. There's no doubting the enthusiasm and belief at the studio, but this game will be made by how it feels once it's finally allowed to be in our hands. This marks the end of our month of
All
IGN.
right, well, that's good to know. So there's going to be an in-game. I respect them not sharing like a lot of story information. I respect that because you don't want to spoil anything. And they probably was like, look, no disrespect IGN, but a lot of people are famous for, using their phone, recording something and put it all over Twitter. So they're like, ain't taking no chance. I can respect that. But I'm looking forward to this game. That is interesting to see 2 red hoods. I would have thought that if you play in co-op, you have to choose whatever character that the person doesn't have. But no, you can have 2 Batgirls, 2 Robins, 2 Nightwings, 2 Red, whatever. Interesting. I mean, that is interesting. But the way they explained it, I respect. Excuse me, I respect that. But thank y'all for tuning in. Let me know how you feel about it. And yeah, I'm counting down because I'm definitely playing this as a Batman fan. But yeah, thank y'all for tuning in. I'll see you.